Oh, we are live.
All right, we are live here, as Danny said. Gonna wait a couple minutes here. Apologies ahead of time. For some reason, my connection's not doing great. So if it cuts in and out, I blame technology.
This is the technology's fault, not ours. So, Mace, how are you tonight?
Overall, pretty good. I wish there was a better matchup that I could look forward to even tonight for the Thursday night game. Surprised to no one. Colts Broncos doesn't really get me revved up, but
So,
we'll see. As maybe it'll be more interesting than I think it's going to be.
I think I know the answer to this just because I'm not like completely stupid when it comes to injury stuff, but with is Russ just regressing because he's getting older, or is that digit giving him more issues than we all think that he broke last year?
It's a little bit of A, a little bit of B, but honestly, I personally think it's still more just Russ getting older. Even before
And his style of play.
right, even before he hurt it, you could see last year that he was already starting to head downhill a bit, and I mean that just added to it. But yeah, his style of play, right, was escapability, get outside the pocket, make some crazy stuff happen, and attack downfield, and he just can't do that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and I might be wrong, but I think Nathaniel Hackett might just suck.
That's the thing too, and from rumblings that I've heard, and nothing like set in stone, so no one take that with a grain of salt, but that it was all kind of contingent a little bit on Aaron Rodgers.
It's got to be a Rodgers thing.
Yeah, they were like, oh, we're getting Aaron, and we'll bring in Nathaniel Hackett, and it'll be a perfect marriage because they've worked together already, and then we're just going to go
each other. See, it's one of those things, and I'm not one to say don't hire the football nerd or whatever, because Mike McDaniel seems like he can definitely get along with his players. But when you start hearing all these stories about how quirky some of these coaches are, and that's all you heard about Nathaniel Hackett in the hiring process, is that his quarterbacks like him, but he's quirky. He's weird. He's strange. And it's like, I don't – there's a difference between, for instance, I'm not saying Eberflus has been anything to write home about just yet, but being football-y meatball guy and just being kind of odd and weird and not being able to resonate with your players on a certain level,
No, and I would agree with that. I mean, football players are humans too, and at the end of the day, if you have a hard time connecting with your coach who's supposed to be leading your team, it's going to be hard to be a part of that. I mean, think about it at your job. If you have a boss that you're like, I like him, but he's just weird, or I like him, but he's just real overly nerdy for me, or whatever the case may be, it's just not necessarily even a work environment you're super pumped about. And sometimes your work suffers for it.
Yeah. And we are a minute from actual show. Look at that.
The 8 people that are here, thank you for being here. And thank you for being early people. You're awesome. You're the best. Everyone that comes after you is not as cool as you. One person left. All right. Well, you're not the cooler person. Oh, well.
You're not cool anymore, jerk.
Anyway, let's actually just get started here. Boom.
All right.
Welcome, Bears fans, to this installment of Bare Bones, to IR and Back Again, where we will look over this week's injury news and preview the Vikings game. So, Danny, we haven't been canceled yet. We're back for episode number 2. How are you doing?
Oh, a little bit of A, a little bit of B, just kind of making through the days, How about you?
Pretty good. It's funny how I tend to wear a lot of my fandom on my sleeve, and, a lot of the times my weeks go with how my fandoms go. The Bulls were not inspiring in their first preseason game. The Bears are hard to watch, but you do it because you love it or because, we got to be able to react to it. It stinks that we're already at this point of the season with the Bears where we knew it was going to be rough. But as we were talking about kind of before the show, there's really not much to hang your hat on. Even in a rebuild, a lot of times you got something that you can just be like, all right, cool, we got this part. But it's tough right now with this Bears team.
Yeah, it's just not a fun watch. It's misery and outside of really Justin Jones on the defensive line, it's the line is hard to watch. It's making the linebackers hard to watch because they're all undersized and quick. And when that's all hard to watch, it's going to make the secondary's job immensely even more. It's like the kinetic chain, right? If one thing hurts, the next thing's going to hurt, and the next thing's going to hurt because you're compensating or whatnot. So it's just, in the infamous words of John Fox, it's all a problem. Like it, I don't even know where to go.
Well,
so
that's a good transition to our knee-jerk reaction. This is where we do one hot take from the last game, just something that we feel just from our gut. Where are you at, Danny?
The defensive lack of discipline in this game was my immediate reaction. I mean, I don't even know what to say. Yeah, they didn't allow the second half touchdown, but it was everything from Kyler Gordon just getting absolutely picked on all game long again.
Yeah.
To Jaquan Brisker just not keeping his eyes right. He was. I'm not sure if that was the initial game plan. They just sold out to stop Barkley. Don't let Barkley beat us. And it just carried over. And even if they tried to adjust at halftime, there was so much lack of discipline between. I mean, forgot Daniel Jones scored twice on the same damn play.
It's absurd.
What are you supposed to do? That's my knee-jerk reaction. And at a certain point, it's not just adjustments. It's you can adjust all you want at halftime. Eventually, the players have to enact the adjustments. It's not just, hey, we want to do this now. All right, cool. That's the right call. All right, we're still falling for the same crap over and over again.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's high school stuff, right? Read your keys. It just didn't seem like a lot of the linebackers, a lot of the safeties. You called out Brisker. I see a lot of the safeties. Really, it was Brisker. Eddie Jackson had a great game.
Eddie Jackson was great.
They weren't doing the basic stuff, right? Read your key. Where's the tackle going? Where's the tight end going? It's not like all these were naked boots and they were just like, hey, Danny Dimes, have fun out on the edge. No, there was blocking that was involved, and a lot of times too, it was a pass play that broke down into a scramble. And so, who has contained there? It's frustrating, like you said. And someone like Eberflus, who is supposed to come in and the hits principle and be very disciplined and all these kinds of things, it's frustrating, like you said, to see that part is struggling so much, and that you have then the struggles on offense and the lack of discipline on special teams and things of that nature. My knee-jerk reaction is having a hard time abiding by some of the heavy Justin Fields reaction. I don't want to even say overreaction, because Justin has things he needs to work on. Let's get that straight. But trying to not put it on some of the other factors as well. So for me, for example, it's the O-line. The fact that PFF has the Bears ranked currently as the 32nd in pass block grade on true pass sets through week 4. So no play action, no screens, and basically, is there pressure within the first 2.5 seconds or so? 32nd in the league shows me that he has little to no time. When you have little to no time, especially after what he went through last year too, Cleveland game comes to mind. Yeah, I'm going to be gun shy too, and I'm going to bail out of the pocket probably sooner than I should. I'm not stepping up into the shenanigans of Sam Mustipher letting people blow by him. I'm getting out of there. So, yeah, it's not just those plays, the 2.5 seconds. It affects the other 2.6 and greater second plays too.
Yeah, and the other part of it that I would like to add on to that is hits matter, man. Not the coaching theory they're trying to enact. The fact that he's getting hit all the time, whether it's as he's throwing, after he's throwing, on his slides, laid out of bounds, on the actual run plays themselves. Eventually, it's gonna mess with your timing. And he's starting to, I kind of alluded to it last week too. He's starting to see ghosts and feel pressure that isn't there, actually, because he's just taking so many hits and he doesn't trust that line or trust his receivers to be open. Now, part of that is recalibrating what is NFL open versus what was open at Ohio State when you were working with 3 first-rounders. But it's not solely him. It's not solely the weapons. It's not solely the line. It's all coming together to make this mishmash of just horrid, disjointed offense.
Oh, it's hard that we're here already. It's only week 5 and we're already in this very frustrated place. But now we move to be perfectly honest. This is where, something that brutally honest each of us took from the last game. And mine is that I do find Eberflus to be refreshing. And I know I just was about him previously, but in the post-game stuff, that's where I'm liking what I'm hearing, because he's willing to talk about stuff. I mean, he's a little secretive when it comes to injuries, what's going on with the line, things like that. But I mean, he straight up said that Fields had time on that 3rd and 10 play where Mooney was streaking open down the field. But then he also mentioned, hey, Mooney, you're responsible too, because you got to bend that route on that concept. But then he also says, well, the entire line gets handed loafs where on that play where Justin was sacked and fumbled. So he's willing to say in public, hey, these are the problems. Here are the players that need to fix what they're doing, instead of where we've seen over and over again where coaches being very reserved and not talking, not saying anything.
He's almost self-aware in a way that we haven't had in Chicago in a while. Like Matt Nagy had no self-awareness. He would sometimes get chippy with the media and stuff like that, where he's like, I know I have to run the ball. I'm not an idiot. Like, all right, cool. Or the infamous line of, I wasn't brought here to run the I formation. Like dude, it's run what's called for in a certain situation. But he is refreshing in a sense of he seems somewhat self-aware. Like you still get a lot of coach speak where he'll sometimes give you 2 or 3 minutes of audio where he doesn't say a whole lot of anything.
Right.
But that's the nature of the NFL in and of itself. My to be perfectly honest was that Daniel Jones is still very bad at football. And it was very infuriating watching the Bears have, by count, probably 4 sacks that they couldn't get him. Like there was one where Al-Qadim Muhammad had him when he was rolling backside to his strong side, and it was like he's got him, and he slipped. Damn it! And there was a couple other. And to Daniel Jones' credit, he's not a good athlete for a quarterback. He's a good athlete. So he is fast, and kind of like I alluded to in the knee-jerk reaction of everyone is so quick to say, well, the coaches have to adjust. The coaches have to adjust. No, players have to take the adjustment and run with it. They have to enact it on field. Mm-hmm. This is on the players. Coaching can only go so far before it comes down to the Jimmies and Joes on the field.
Yeah, and it's funny. I had a couple of Giants fans slide into my DMs. I popped on a Giants podcast just to give an idea of what's going on with the matchup and all that. And I said I picked the Bears to win it, and they could have won that game. Let's be real; they didn't deserve to win it, but they could have. And I said in that podcast, I'm picking the Bears mainly because I still think ultimately Justin Fields is going to be a better quarterback. I just can't pick Daniel Jones. So then I had some Giants fans sliding into my DMs being like, look at that, Daniel Jones. Again, like you're saying, to be honest, he's not a good quarterback. He's not going to be there that much longer. I don't know where he's going to be, but I can tell you it's not going to be playing in New York.
Yeah. Also, I know it's early in the show, but prayers out to poor Tyrod Taylor. I thought Morrow killed a man on the field. That was a nasty looking hit.
That was absolutely ridiculous. And actually, we're going to jump a little bit because you brought that up. We're going to come back to it, though. We're going to go right to our Concussion Corner just because that's a beautiful transition, and I think it's great. So, Danny, what is something from last game that, the decision was so odd that the decision maker must be concussed?
So I know a lot of people are going to say the punting by Eberflus on that 4th down. But I would actually say the several 3 downs leading up to it were very questionable. Like I get the punt itself wasn't great, but it worked. In essence, it worked. They pinned them back. They got the desired result. They got the punt back. And then, shenanigans ensued with the 3rd round pick that just made his debut that Sunday. But the coaching calls, and we're still doing this weird thing where they're actually surprisingly efficient on 2nd and 3rd down passing. They just don't do it very often. So is it a skewed sample size thing? Is it like, they just don't do it because they don't trust anything? But they're still doing this like 2nd and 14, 3rd and 10, run the ball. It's the essence of playing not to lose. And if you play not to lose, you're going to end up losing a lot more. And to be clear, I don't think either of us picked the Bears to win more than 6 games this year. 7 was like best true outcome you could come up with. It looked like a gun to my head. Right. But the way they played this past weekend against the Giants, who, to be clear, are a fraud of a 3-1 team. They are not good at football.
Oh, absolutely.
I cannot get past that they should have won this football game. And they just could not score and get out of their own way in certain instances. How about you, Mason? What was your boneheaded. What the hell is going on here?
It's funny. I'm glad you brought up what you did in terms of the third round pick, right? Making an unfortunate play, because mine was having Velus Jones, that third round pick, active, but not having him log a single snap on offense. To me, you have St. Brown with 59 snaps, Darnell Mooney with 53, Pettis with 36, and Smith Marset with 6. For me, and this is just me, but like I have a hard time. It's like a 6th, 7th man person coming off the bench and expecting them, hey, hit all 3 of your shots. Just fielding the ball's a little different. We saw there was some gustiness going on, because due to being where they were at in New Jersey. I almost said New York. They're not in New York. And how do you not even use him on an end around? How do you not send him at least once on a deep route? Like, are you that worried about the injury? Is he that behind on the playbook? Let him be a part of the game and at least have something else for the Giants to consider.
And I think what the other concerning part about that is with Velus is if it's the playbook thing, you're already talking about a guy who's 25 years old as a rookie. That's concerning. If he's not picking up the playbook and he hasn't been practicing, so that means he should be in the playbook. Why isn't he on the field? Is it the injury? Is it the playbook? There's a lot of weird things around Velus Jones in general because that injury came kind of out of nowhere almost. Like he wasn't practicing. Then all of a sudden he was active for the second preseason game. And then he was gone. He was just disappeared. And then he was gone again up until this past week when we knew it was a hamstring bothering him. And then he doesn't even get a single offensive snap. It's bizarre, to say the least.
Absolutely. And just to mention on this release, I'm not saying he doesn't know the playbook. That's absolutely not what we're trying to say here. We're just saying we're listing the things that potentially why the heck you're not having him do a single snap. That's one of the list of 6 things that maybe it could be, but it's weird. I don't care. I mean, if you're fine to play the game and if you're fine to go from a stop position and accelerate immediately, your hamstring is fine. That's it. There's no. You could have him do a fly route. You can have him do an end around. It's not a hamstring issue. If it is, he shouldn't be out there. It's as simple as that. And again, that's me saying that as someone who deals with that on a daily basis.
It was like the thing that I'll liken it to, like Zach LaVine in the playoffs last year when he was starting to struggle. It's like, oh, well, his knee is bothering him. He's out there. He's healthy enough to play. I don't want to hear the excuses. Play.
Right.
Play to your ability.
And then now we're going to head to our area where what we found a little humorous. For me, I find it funny that it took a white hair injury for the Bears to, in theory, stick with Tevin Jenkins at right guard. The fact that, I think the eyeball test and even some of the advanced stats show he's been pretty good at right guard. The entire line has been good in pass protection, but he's been one of the better players in run protection. Just let him be out there. You're in a rebuild. I get what you're doing with Lucas Patrick in terms of making sure he's ready to go when you get to center. Maybe you have these question marks. Just let him play. Just stop it.
Yeah. My humorous moment was God, I hope this doesn't become a recurring theme on this show for us, but it's another laugh to keep from crying. It's Daniel Jones scoring twice on the same exact damn play. You couldn't have drawn it up. It was like the same thing. Jaquan bit down strong side, and here comes Daniel Jones rolling back weak side, and oh no, he's taking away the angle again, and there's the touchdown. Cool, neat, sweet. I'm not upset or anything.
Absolutely. Well, what would you say, Danny, was your jaw-dropping stat? Something that just really stuck you, whether it's from the game or going forward?
Kind of alluded to it earlier, but I brought up the punt earlier, and when I saw it was the surrender rate on that punt, that it was something like 97.5%, which is or in the 97.5th percentile for being a surrender move based on that analytic on Twitter. It kind of threw me for a loop because it didn't. Again, maybe it's just I'm not well versed in that specific stat, but the punt itself with 3 timeouts to pin them deep and then get the ball back, the plan itself worked. It's not like they were losing by 14. They were down 8. It was a single score game.
Right.
So who cares? And then my other one would be 12 points all scored by a kicker no longer on the roster.
Yeah, what a great tweet from the Bears and Ryan Poles. Appreciate you scoring every single one of our points. Here's the door. I mean, what else are you gonna do? I mean, Carlos Santos you're not gonna keep him on the team. Carlos Santos is being paid all the money. It was a good showing. Badgley was able to go out there and like put some tape out, and if another team needs a kicker, in theory he should be signed.
Gig. Yeah.
One thing I thought was weird, and maybe I'm wrong on this, I'm pretty sure the Chargers actually just signed a kicker. He has experience with the Chargers. It's weird they didn't bring him back in, but
yeah, whatever. That is strange. What about you? What's your stat of jaw dropping this?
My stat of jaw dropping this actually is going to require a picture because I didn't necessarily want to
I like pictures.
Have to talk about it. So, and this is just a friendly reminder. We are, if you're listening to this later, we are live. We are live. This chart makes me sad. So if you look at the bottom, right, quarterback dropback percent without pressure. And if you look at the left side, it's the dropbacks where receivers were open. If you look, the bottom left corner is where the Bears are sitting. I'm going to estimate here because it's not exact, but around 58% of the time is Justin Fields is able to drop back without pressure. No one else is even close to as low as that, really. And then if you look at dropbacks where the wide receivers seemed open, that's about 36%. Also very low. The other teams, I'm not even sure what those bullet points are. I think one might be the Texans down there. But basically, the Bears have created a situation where they are in a league of their own when it comes to not being open and allowing pressure. AKA, it's as multifactorial. This is not just a, hey, Justin Fields is a bad quarterback conversation.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. It's like I said, it's a terrible mishmash of crap going on offense, and it doesn't seem like it's going to get any better anytime soon.
No, absolutely not. And and John just said that in the chat too, right? Too bad he doesn't get a clean pocket half the time. Isn't that's absolutely wild that's the case.
Yeah, it's embarrassing almost, like, because they're not even in the same dimension as anybody else. Like they're just on an island by themselves. They're Tom Hanks in Castaway.
So who's Wilson?
Wilson, that can be Khalil Herbert. Khalil Herbert can be his Wilson.
That's the one thing you're hanging on to. Khalil Herbert, please. Ryan Poles is in the chat. That's so cool. All right, let's move on to our news dump. This is just kind of where we're going to go over a couple quick hitting things from the week. A couple things I found interesting. Eberflus said the team would reduce the amount of time in full pads to keep them fresh, shorter practices, again, like last week. Danny, is there, I'm all about callousing. Do you think, is there anything to do with this? Is the hits principle wearing on the team at all? Or is this just traditional football's going to wear on you kind of stuff?
I think it's probably the latter more than the former. I think that they did the callousing and the hard hitting and everything the first few weeks of camp, obviously, and mini camp, because we know they got fined for their OTAs or mini camps, right? Because they were going too hard. They've got their callousing in. I think it's just the season's a grind. The NFL is, for lack of a better term, it's a war of attrition, right? Who's healthy, who's not. And, unfortunately, we've had a couple not non-minuscule injuries pile up on the Bears roster, one being Cody Whitehair, which I know we're going to get to later in the show. But it's not good. And I think that they're just trying to lessen the blows and keep their guys as healthy as they can, especially they got the Vikings this weekend, and then they got a short week with the Commanders on Thursday.
I'm going to keep it simple. I agree with that. I just want to nip that narrative in the butt a little bit where, it's not just all of a sudden Eberflus throwing his hands up and being like, I was wrong. Hits are bad. Lopes are bad, blah, 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 blah. It's just football. You got to manage it. One other thing I thought interesting, little news part. So after the game, Justin Fields had some comments about the Eddie Jackson pick. And Mooney had some similar thoughts later in the week saying that it put the offense in a tough spot. Mm-hmm. Having Eddie Jackson intercept that pass on first down. Where do you fall on that?
I think he was more – I don't think he was saying Eddie made the wrong play. I think he was more – it's clear he's a young kid who's never had this sort of non-level of successes. He's clearly struggling, and he's clearly going through it a little bit because he's always been the best. I mean, I think he was part of the Under Armour Perfect Game series for baseball. He was Mr. Georgia football or whatever. Like he's always been successful, and he's not now. He's got 15 starts under his belt total, right, after last week. And he's got like 6 total wins between last year and this year in the 15. So he's 6-9, if my memory serves. I don't have that stat pulled up in front of me. I think I'm going completely off the top of my head there.
Yeah, sure.
But it's got to be getting to him. And I think that is the very essence of him being just frustrated from his answer to Jason Leeser about, I don't care about stats as long as we win the game. And Eddie, pinned us back, which he is right. The interception did pin them back. But there's maybe 4 or 5 safeties in the league that have the range to go even make that interception, and Eddie went and made it. Like, it's hard.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it simple. Like you said, that was a crazy play that Eddie made. It was first down. You make the pick. It's just frustration starting to boil over a little bit. Like you said, it just is what it is. Don't put too much stock in it. Something else. Just want to nip in the bud. There's so much stuff right now that's going to get thrown out there. And as Ryan Poles is saying, right, don't worry. The plan is to lay the foundation and build on that. So we don't really have to worry about it too much.
King Poles.
So now we're going to move on to our training room roundup, where we're going to discuss some of the injuries specifically with the Bears and touch on the Vikings. I'm not going to lie. The Vikings don't have a lot going on, so it's going to be a little heavier on the Bears. Throw on Chicapow. Here we go. So let's run through some of the ones that either A, not as concerned about, or honestly not as interesting. So you have Dan Cruikshank. He's just still going to be out, as we saw with Velus Jones. Hamstrings can be temperamental. He's just going to be out for a while. A little bit of a special teams hit. He was one of the biggest things for him coming into the season was being a tight end stopper. What are your thoughts on Cruikshank and that label that he was given?
I mean, it was interesting in theory, and we had the cool little breakdown from the Titans YouTuber whose name is escaping me. But I mean, he's not playing, so we don't really get to see that enacted. It would be cool to see him in the dime backer role to take on bigger tight ends like an Irv Smith this weekend. But
nice.
Doesn't seem like that's going to happen.
Ryan Griffin limited. I think that's actually a low key kind of not a big thing, but something that's going to help. You saw that last week where with him not in, you had Wesco who got more snaps, and Wesco is basically a giant tackle. So having him run routes is a waste of your time. So having him back would be nice. He should be back as long as Friday clears out. He had a little aggravation, I think, last week. That's why he didn't play. Jalen Johnson. I don't want to minimize this, but there's not a lot to talk about. He's out. I don't think he's playing this week. That quad is bothering him. Still hasn't been seen doing anything besides your traditional bike-esque stuff and rehab. So
have we heard exactly what he did to his quad? Like, because I know he had the quote saying that if it was a playoff game, he'd be able to give it a go.
There's not been anything that has substantial. It's probably one of those things where, like you're saying, could he push through it? Yeah, he could jam through that, but it's gonna be real tough.
And you don't want to risk more injury. Like, it's a soft tissue injury, and you can re-aggravate it, or a pull can become a tear. It's just one of those things.
And this wasn't on the screen, but any news on Pringle from Torian? Yeah, he's gotten short-term IR, so he still has 3 weeks even before we're going to even consider that. The other ones, just to highlight real quick, rapid fire. Jalen Jones, illness, full participant. He's good to go. Justin Jones, limited. I mean, we saw sometimes limited becomes did not participate the next day, so something to keep an eye on. Danny talks about Justin Jones early. If he's not in there, your bad run defense is even worse, right, Danny?
Without question. And then he's actually been generating some decent pass rush too. It looks like just pushing the pocket, collapsing it, make it a little harder to stay in there. He's been a solid, if not good, defensive tackle. It's just, like I said, it's everything around him. It's making his life just more difficult. And when all you have to do is focus on one guy, all right, it's basically the theory of in basketball, that this bum team has one volume scorer. Let him do whatever he wants and make the rest of the team beat us.
Yeah, absolutely. And then David Montgomery did practice today, limited participant.
That guy is Wolverine.
Individual drills. I don't get it. So I saw that injury. I saw the video of that. We went over it last week. If you want to, I did a mini breakdown on what we looked at in the last one we did. It's insane because there's not just that. He had the knee injury last year with the MCL sprain that he had. And then he also had that groin injury he had in the preseason. he's legitimately Wolverine. Oh, I call him Cyborg just because, Teen Titans love that show growing up, but it's insane. I'm leaning towards him start playing, but with a pretty divided workload between himself and Herbert.
Oh, I could see that totally. And it's one of those things. We talked about it in our debut last week. He is probably not, quote unquote, the fit for the offensive run scheme that they're employing, but that guy's an emotional and like team leader of that offense. It's something to kind of look for them to. It's a guy for them to look to, is what I'm saying. So he's not the best player in the world, but he certainly matters for the morale of that locker room, and it's someone Justin can look to as just to confide in.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, just being that emotional support on the sideline in the game is huge, I think, for Justin, for Herbert. I would expect him maybe even to get some more of those third down reps, like for the pass protection, because Herbert has struggled as a pass protector. So having Monty in there would be pretty helpful, I would think.
Yep, would agree with that.
All right, and then just one more.
Rutherford is sick.
Yeah, he's sick. I mean, maybe there's something going around right now. Clearly, it's not a COVID thing, or else all hell would break loose. Right, N'Keal Harry, right? 21-day window open for him. He's not on this list.
I'm not sure who N'Keal Harry is, but N'Keal Harry is back.
N'Keal Harry. I call him N'Keal so often. I don't know why. I'm sorry, N'Keal. I know you listen to this podcast. Don't be mad at me. He doesn't actually. But he joined individual drills and then went to be with the strength staff. Don't expect him this week. It's as simple as that. There's no reason to rush him back from that injury. The high ankle sprain is a pretty big deal, but he's in that 7-8 week mark at this point that he's good to go in terms of being more active. And also keep in mind, in 3 games, the Bears are playing the Patriots. And I can only imagine that he has that game circled saying, hey, I'm back for this game. So expect him to maybe get a bit of a mini ramp-up-y game against the Commanders and then more full force against the New England Patriots.
Have to agree with that.
All right, so now Cody Whitehair, right, was placed on 4-week IR, so that short term. As according to Adam Johns at The Athletic, he left the locker room in a straight leg brace. And that's important to note simply because the type of injury it might be. That's my screensaver. Yay, I remember that game. That was fun.
That was fun. That's only 3 weeks ago.
That seems like an eternity ago. So we're going to look at really quick. I found the exact play where Cody got hurt, obviously here. And again, another reminder, if you're listening to the podcast, check the video out. Come look at YouTube and some other places. It's probably also on Twitter. Play this at half speed and try to talk through this best I can. I also apologize because Soldier Field has terrible all-22 tape.
All-22, the worst all-22 you could ever watch.
It's ridiculous. And then if you watch the end zone view, and it makes sense, they snap away immediately as soon as that ball's out, and I have no idea. Can't see it. So what we're going to look at here, boom, ball snapped, everything's hunky-dory. Boom, boom, boom. And what happens is you can see Mustafa, and I know a lot of people in the chat he's everyone's favorite person, so keep that in mind. He's getting blocked, out of the way, and then the right tackle is going to collapse down and nail Cody in the back of the leg, right? You can see him goes down.
Cody gets rolled up on.
Danny, in your playing days, did you ever get rolled up on at all?
Yep.
It's not fun. Super not fun.
It's great.
Roll that
it's
back
the most
again.
Fun.
Boom. Right on the back of that right leg. So because of that, and because of the fact that he left in a straight leg brace, and also combining the fact that he's on short-term IR, I believe he has an MCL, potential ACL combo going on there, a strain, grade 2, grade 3.
Fun.
Because he was hit from the back, right? One of the main jobs of the ACL is to prevent the tibia, that lower leg bone, from moving forward. And that's what would happen. Normally, in terms of a total rupture, you see a non-contact. So that's why I believe his ACL was spared, since it was more of a contact injury. And also you can see that body weight was shifting a bit to the midline, and he's leaning to the right, why I think some MCL is involved. PCL, that's actually considered your dashboard injury. So if you put your feet up on the car and you get a car accident and that tibia, that lower leg bone, gets shoved backwards, it is super not fun. Everyone, if your significant other or whoever kids put their legs up in their passenger seat, get them down, please. No one wants a PCL.
I can confirm, having seen that firsthand in emergency situations, when you get called to that, it's super not cool. It is. Yeah.
So actually, that's a good point. So Danny, when you've seen that, like what is the person usually looking like, feeling like when you get that PCL? Just as a little diversion here.
So if you're talking about the dashboard injury, they're looking
Yeah.
like basically the tibia is, in most cases when that airbag goes off, it's shattered and pushed back, and they're writhing in pain more or less. Like it makes the leg look all contorted. Like the knee is buckled back. The tib fib is either fractured in multiple places or straight dust, depending on how like harsh the impact is, kind of thing, or if the airbag goes off. It's not great. It's pretty substantial injury to come back from.
Yeah. So that's why also we're thinking short-term IR. I mean, if it was grade 4, if it was a complete tear, he'd be done for the season. Grade 3, you can usually get away with it, especially in linemen. ACL, PCL is a little more important for cutting specifically. Sometimes you can even play with a torn ACL if you're a lineman, just because you don't need as much of that rotational stability. But yeah, so Cody Whitehair done for at least the 4 weeks as we wait for short-term IR. Would expect similar thought process where if there's going to be a bit of a ramp up, come back, he's going to wear a leg brace when he does come back and play. But that's going to be.
You know what's wild? You watch this rep from Cody. It's a good rep from him there. He does all right.
Rep. It's a great rep. That's the thing that sucks. Cody had a bit of a comeback season because last year he was not very good. This year he's been good, like legitimately good.
He's been legitimately good.
Well, let's get this off your screen so no one else has to watch that anymore. All right, back to the fun pick, and then slowly surely.
Oh, look, when Whitehair was happy and healthy.
Oh God, that's such a sad transition. Okay, back to this. Next, what we're going to do is a little bit of a fantasy focus, just a bit of a chat of some stuff going around in the NFL. So, Danny, I'm going to read you a quick list here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Patrick, PJ Locke, Adrian Amos, Tyquan Lewis, Shaquille Leonard, Cameron Klein, Denzel Perryman, Tyrod Taylor, Julian Love, Patrick Johnson, Terrell Edmonds, Cameron Brate. Who are those people?
Those are a lot of
share. What do they share in common?
Defense. Oh,
Cameron
no.
Brate.
Cameron Brate at the bottom. What do they?
Tyrod
They're
Taylor.
all. Oh well, Tyrod Taylor doesn't have the fantasy focus. I don't know, Mason. What do they all have in common? Are they all hurt?
All those players are hurt, specifically concussions. 15
Oh, they're
players,
all concussed.
15
Wow.
players through this last week were ruled out with concussions. So, Danny, I ask you: is this a
are
reaction
you sure it's not
to
back or neck injuries? Are we sure?
I think that was. I'm asking you: is this a reaction to Tua? And are you worried about it long term, whether it's NFL or fantasy purposes, etc., in terms of potential quote unquote overreactions to this?
I don't think it's a Tua thing. I think it's more the NFL, and maybe I guess maybe a reaction to Tua, like, hey, let's make sure we're getting these spotted correctly. But I'm not worried about it long term. I mean, at the end of the day, as much as I may love fantasy, you play fantasy. Everyone in the world who watches football seemingly plays fantasy, even if it's just casually. These guys are humans. I think it's better to get the spotter out there, make sure that these guys are okay, and get the correct call versus what the hell your fantasy team is doing.
And it's tough because, from my understanding, the independent neurologist who has been let go, right, since this incident occurred.
Okay, so I have a question about how are you an independent neurologist when the NFL is paying you?
I don't know if you can hear that in this on the podcast and all that. That's me clapping because you can't be. I'm sorry. You are not associated with either team directly. However, you are still employed by the NFL Players Association. That's not independent. The people who are the checks and balances, the NFL is hiring or firing you based on what they feel. And if you're red flagging tons of players, they're going to get pissed at you. I'm sorry. That's not independent.
It's not. There's no way it's independent. In fact, they are dependent on you. They probably don't have a practice anymore, or they're not practicing anymore, except for your organization. Because guess what? There's no better money than NFL money. Okay.
Exactly. And I'm going to disagree with you a little bit, Danny. I do think this is a reaction to Tua. I feel like the NFL.
Oh, I did correct myself. I kind of was like,
oh, there you go.
Like
I feel like the NFL went around to teams and to all these independents, the eyes in the sky and all that. And it's like, if you think for a second they have a concussion, you're taking them out, because 15 players is a lot. I have never seen that many flagged in a single weekend. Oh, and not just that, Cameron Brate actually went back in the game before they pulled him back out again, just as a side
That's note. Naperville Central's finest, Mr. Man. Or was it North? I can't remember. Where did Cameron Brate go to school? Hey. I know he went to Harvard. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to look this up while you continue.
Yeah. So we're going to move on to Javonte Williams, right? Tore his ACL, done for the year. So that's not really conversation here for the most part. It's the conversation's more about what the Broncos are going to do after that. So fantasy purposes. They are leaning on Melvin Gordon and Mike Boone. They also technically did sign Latavius Murray from the Saints practice squad, but he's inactive for tonight's game. So, it was a short week. It was hard to get him revved up. So my question to you, they also elevated Devin Ozigbo for more likely special team stats.
Isn't it Divine Ozigbo?
I'm not going to lie. I didn't look up how to pronounce his name because he matters so much.
What kind of podcast host are you?
It's one that doesn't care about the elevated running back of the Denver Broncos. I'm not going to lie.
That is a Nebraska Cornhusker legend, sir.
The fact that is amazing to me. That's impressive. So my question is, first of all, the Broncos have been awful offensively. The only reason they're in games is defense. With this, considering how important that Javonte Williams was to this team, are you playing Russell Wilson? Are you playing the receivers? Are you trying to get Melvin Gordon? Maybe if you can snag him.
I already had Melvin Gordon as his handcuff option in the one league I have him in. I think he's also scored on 55% of all of his red zone touches prior to this year when in Denver. So the past 2 years, I think he's been there prior to this season. I would play Gordon just because he's been a bell cow before when he was a member of the Chargers, and he's probably going to be the workhorse here, despite his 4 fumbles in his last 4 games. Ooh,
I forgot to put this up, so I was going to flash it while you keep talking. For those listening, I'm putting a bear with wings on Danny's face.
Is there any receiver you really trust? I mean, it seems like the passing game is just launch it to Cortland Sutton and just see what happens. I mean, was Tim Patrick that detrimental to their passing game? And I said it before, where when they first got him, they should have entertained trading Jerry Jeudy, because I don't think the way he plays fits with Russ. Russ is a broken player. He it deep guy. Jerry Jeudy is a route tactician. He's winning on timing and the ability to run routes and have a very crisp, nuanced tree. He'd be better off in New England with Mac Jones, who are just all timing, boom, 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 ball out, let's go. But that's not what Russ does. It's let Russ cook when Russ might be cooked, but that's not my problem. Thank God they didn't give him a 5-year extension.
I'm treating this team like it has cancer. I am not touching it. I am not playing. If I have Russ, I don't have Russ. Thankfully, I stayed away from that bombshell. I have KJ Hamler chilling in a dynasty league. He's buried on my bench at this point. I'm hoping that maybe Hamler either ends up on another team in the future, or Russ eventually just runs out his time there. But yeah, I'm staying away from this team. If you're lucky enough to have Melvin Gordon, that's the only playable person.
That's the only one. Yeah. And Cortland, I guess, but I don't know.
In a deep league, if you got a wide receiver 3 option, you can go Cortland.
Or your super flex. Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a quick break here, and we'll be back momentarily.
All right.
Welcome back. Now we're going to dive into this matchup. Vikings Bears. So over the last 10 games, this matchup sits at 5-5. Vikings winning the last 2. So Danny, what are your thoughts on the Vikings?
I think they came out like gangbusters that first week, and everyone was starting to sip the Kool-Aid that was Kevin O'Connell and that offense and Jay Jettas and all that fun stuff with him going crazy. But it's hard because Dalvin Cook is doing his Dalvin Cook thing where he's he's hurt or nicked up in some fashion seemingly every year, even though I think when he's right, he might be one of the 2 or 3 most gifted runners in the NFL. And they have Adam Thielen, who in theory should be like one of your top 5 second tier options as a wide receiver 2 in the league. And he's seemingly, until last week, was pretty silent. And Kirk Cousins is still Kirk. Like, it's not a bad thing to be Kirk Cousins, but he's still painfully Kirk Cousins, you know? I don't know. I don't really – we'll get more into it, but what are your thoughts on this game? I don't feel too great about it.
I mean, so they blew the doors off Green Bay, right? Like you said, I think they threw – that was like almost a Super Bowl-esque moment for them. Let's come out strong.
Was that like them throwing the – I always liken it to when Steve Spurrier first got to the Washington job and he like blew his load in preseason and early on in that season, showing everyone the fun and gun offense that he was running down in Florida and DC. And then the league got the tape and was like, all right, cool, do it now. And is it possible that it's with O'Connell now it's happening? It's like, all right, kid, we got your number. It's what makes great. Great, good's good, and great's better. The adjustment to the adjustment, you know?
Yeah, I think it's 2 things. I think it is what you're saying, that they just, here's everything we got, like the good stuff, and then it's like, oh wait, shoot, now what? Once the league starts to adjust to you. But because then when you go out and you lose against the Eagles and barely beat the Vikings, then then you had like the Andy Dalton-led Saints, who didn't have Alvin Kamara, didn't have Michael Thomas, and you really only won on a missed double doink. So like, you barely got out of that one. I still think this team ultimately is likely to win 10 to 11 games, right? Like, they're still that kind of a team, especially with the division they play in.
And the defense is interesting.
But when you have, it seems like almost the offense changed from week 1 to the rest, where, and you and I talked about this before, it was like a very Stafford-like offense in the first one, in terms of like that connection O'Connell to the Rams. And then all of a sudden it was the Jared Goff offense, where all of a sudden you have a lot more heavy personnel. It's really these condensed splits where you have, the receivers like Justin Jefferson and Thielen getting open on things like screens and drags and crossers, choice routes. But like, it actually is something that I think the Bears should do well with adding into their stuff. But it's not the big play things. It's not the Stafford bombs to Justin Jefferson.
No, it's not. It's almost like O'Connell is protecting himself from Kirk. Don't let Kirk lose this game almost. It's kind of, like you said, it's the Jared Goff game. It's the Jared Goff thing. Like, just, all right, we have Todd Gurley, just give the ball to Gurley. All right, cool. It's the same thing. We have Alexander Madison. We have Dalvin Cook. We have Irv Smith as a safety blanket. Just do it. Just run the ball, protect the ball, and occasionally chuck it deep to whoever, be it Thielen or more preferably Justin Jefferson.
Well, it's a thing with Kirk Cousins too, right? I mean, like when everything is perfect, when the picture that he sees in front of him is exactly the same as it was on the whiteboard back, the week before preparing, he's awesome. But then when you change anything, when you muddy that picture just a little bit, when the pressure gets to him from the pass rush, when the coverage is actually where it's supposed to be, or like not supposed to be, at least in his mind, all of a sudden he just short circuits and he can't do anything. So that's just what Kirk Cousins is. He's fine, but that's it. He's never going to win you a game.
No.
So transitioning a little to the defense, and I do think it's interesting to throw this comment up by J2K. I am also curious about the Ed Donatel, because he comes from that Vic Fangio tree where, right, Fangio doesn't blitz. It's usually still 4-man pressures. The thing is more like where the pressure's coming from. Is there a safety? Is there a linebacker instead of one of the down linemen? Yeah, exactly. But the Vikings defense ranks 29th in pressure percent. The coverage unit ranks 26th, and they're flying back from a game in London. They're also playing in a dome, which the Bears have not had good weather luck. If there's a game that Justin maybe can kind of do a little something against the defense, maybe it's this one.
I feel like we're going to be saying this every week, just finding that one thing. Like, maybe
I'm trying so hard.
Maybe if it's this or maybe if it's that. But I do somewhat agree with you. It's just hard to, and I know we're going to get to the love it and hate it and whatnot here going forward, but I think you said it pretty well. They've had bad weather luck. the flight back from London, all of it. And then that was a hard-fought game. They won off the double doink, like you said, and every Bear fan cringes in PTSD moments. But it just seems like it's lining up for them to at least compete.
If that's the thing, I do think it's gonna be more of a classic Bears Vikings, I think, game where we'll get to our picks later in terms of how it turns out, but I think it's gonna be closer than people would give it credit for. So, and another part to talk on before we hit some of our specifics is the Bears' offensive line, right? I mean, I opened the show with it, and I think it's important to talk about. Early in the week, Eberflus said that the line would be Braxton Jones, Lucas Patrick, Sam Mustipher, gross, Tevin Jenkins, and Larry Borum, from left to right. Gross. But then today, Yetsy said that the team is trying to figure out the best combo for the line on Sunday. So there's a bit of a funkiness there. He also said that Patrick, yesterday, he did a little bit of everything, right? So some center, some guard. I'm not convinced that line that Eberflus talked about, that combination is going to be what you see. Another thing that I think is important to highlight, Quentin did a really good job actually compiling, and I'm going to throw it on the screen here in a second. You can find him at Buckus Stats. He decided to take a look at kind of Lucas Patrick's career stats at different positions. And according to PFF, left guard, and I'm reading the screen to you for those who can't see it, is the spot where he had done his best run blocking. But if you look, it's also where he had his worst pass blocking. So if you look at those grades at left guard, he had a 47.4 pass block percent, but when he moves to center, he's at 67. It's 20% boost when he moves to center, compared to that, which is insane. And in terms of run blocking, I mean, he just has been not good at center or right guard. In theory, left guard was his best. So, I mean, if you're going by the stats, if you're going by the data, as long as the hand is fine, which in my thought process it should be, you play the guy at center. Right?
Center. Yep, that's what you also signed him to play. It's beyond me. Like we talked about last week, why he's not playing center is that if that hand is not cast, in theory, it should be strong enough to snap the football. And what have we had 2 straight weeks of Sam Mustipher just not putting the ball far enough back on an under center snap and it ends up on the ground? Like that's something small, but it needs to happen.
And Justin plays a heavy role in the pass protection, right? But I'm telling you right now, Mustipher missed some of those protection adjustments. Someone earlier, it might have been Berlissimo, threw out there, well, if he's still playing line, why isn't he helping with the adjustments? I mean, he's right there. You just don't do that. You don't all of a sudden have your right guard, your left guard do those adjustments. Your center does it. So I think getting him there, knowing the offense in theory, that should help everyone get on the same page. All right, now we're going to check again. What we have coming up here is our love it, hate it, rehabilitate it, where we pick something that we like about the matchup for the Bears, hate for the Bears, and then something that if we were the coaches,
not make me chuckle.
we would fix. Again, if you're listening to this, you gotta pop on and watch the video every once in a while. There's just some great things that are in here, at least in my opinion. And you got to be there for the fun. I mean, it's just fantastic.
Oh God.
So, Annie, what was your love? And I know that this is probably a bit of a struggle.
The struggle is real. The love is just the running game is still successful. I love that they could potentially still run the ball against a defense that is still clearly finding its way from the Mike Zimmer system that they were running to now the Donatell Vic Fangio system that's been kind of sweeping the lead the past couple of years. I'm interested to see if Monty plays, what kind of role, if they go more multiple in the running that they're doing versus just strictly outside zone and stuff like that, where maybe if they incorporate some power and duos, because that's where Monty more thrives anyway, instead of trying to make him make a decision, let him get those moves to say, hey, this is your hole anyway, go through here, and then you can have all those special moves. That the thing that makes him special is his contact balance and his ability to make a guy miss in space, right? Well, if you just say, hey, here's ISO or here's duo, go straight ahead, and then you have him with a linebacker one-on-one versus him trying to read and which hole is which on this outside zone, you might get better success out of it. Now, I'm not saying it's a cure-all or anything, and I'm not even sure he's going to play. And if he does, like you mentioned earlier on the show, it's going to be closer to a 50-50 snap load, I'd imagine, or even 60-40 in favor of Herbert with him coming off of –
I just had to throw that out. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe Velus Jones can donate his hands to Patrick. He clearly isn't using them.
That gave me a giggle.
So
What's your love it, Mason?
my love it. Unfortunately, Lewis Sign, who I know we both were pretty high on coming out of school as a deeper option for at safety. He had a compound fracture in the left leg. He wasn't the starter, but he was definitely the guy who could pop in and help. So it really falls entirely onto Cameron Bynum, who is currently playing opposite Harrison Smith at safety. It's hard to use some of these stats for safeties because you don't always know, like, who has the blown coverage or where these going to. It's tough to really grade the safety, but so far this year, he's been targeted 8 times and allowed 7 completions for 3 touchdowns, for a passer rating allowed of 158.3. That's not good.
So you're saying that's less than ideal?
I would hope. I mean, if there can be some inkling of protection, if there can be some inkling of a receiver getting open deep, trying to go after Bynum, because the rest of the matchups aren't great.
No, I mean, and Patrick Peterson isn't what he once was, but he's been fine. And Cam Dantzler is, again, fine. And the issue with that, it becomes like, I'm saying they're fine, and Andrew Booth has been hurt, their other highly drafted rookie in the secondary. It becomes, though, who do you trust to get open against fine?
Right, exactly. We talked about at the top of the show, my stat. I mean, 35% open rating or percentage right now for the Bears receivers? Mm-hmm. Not good. My hate. So I got this data from Jonathan Wood. Make sure you follow him. He's got some really good data at Jonathan_Wood1. Should note that this data is only through 3 quarters to try to avoid script in the 4th quarter, passing a bunch when you're trailing or trying to run out the clock. But basically, he took a look at 2nd and 3rd down offense, and I hate currently the Bears' 2nd and 3rd down offense. So on 2nd down, they currently have 46% pass, 3.1 yards per pass, and 3.9 yards per run. On 3rd down by distance, when there's 1 to 3 yards to go, they've only run 5 plays, by the way, there in terms of those 3 quarters. 40% pass, 3 first downs. If you go to 4 to 6 yards to go for the first down, 11 plays. 82% pass, 5 first downs. And when you're 7 or more yards to go, they've run 20 plays and 85% of them have been passes. So my hate, first of all, the fact that you have 20 plays on 7 plus to go and 11 plays on 4 to 6 yards to go, but also secondarily, on 2nd down, you're only passing 46% of the time. And you're getting 3.9 yards per run and 3.1 yards per pass. But at the same time, like you got to test it. It can't be run, pass all the time. Like, you have to switch it up.
I mean, and this is where the growing pains of Getsy show their head, right? Or rear their ugly head, where it's like you're getting to this point where you're so predictable in your play calling that it makes you easy to key in on. Makes you easy to game plan for until you change it up and make them pay for it.
Well, what do you hate?
What do I hate? I hate this secondary against Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Again, citing Jay Wood, it is quite literally a country mile that Kyler Gordon is the worst corner in football right now, and it's one of those things for him that I know he's learning a dual role that can't be easy when you're playing corner and nickel, which is 2 very different responsibilities in defense. I really, really need them to rather pick. I almost want them to just pick one versus the other for what he's doing. Kindle's been fine. I don't think he's been awful. He's surprised me. He's been
actually pretty good, actually. I would say good.
Yeah, above average. Why not just let Kyler play nickel? When he was coming out of Washington this year, I graded him. I watched his tape and found him to be a nickel. Now, part of it wonders he's a very special athlete, shall we say, having the dancing background, the body control, the hip fluidity, et cetera, et cetera. Part of me wonders if he's so used to just being able to do stuff that other human beings can't do all the way through college and just say, F it, I can make up for this later. Because it almost looks like he's thinking that he can versus just playing football and what his assignment should be. And he's playing catch up a lot. And you can't play catch up in the NFL. Everybody's fast. I can't tell you how many times throughout the previous draft cycles you hear these SEC corners and receivers saying, I played in the fastest conference in college football. and I get to the NFL and I'm not fast anymore.
Yeah, I remember transitioning from high school to college wrestling. It was the same thing. Like I didn't lift, I didn't like do anything outside of practice, and I crushed it in high school. Got to college and realized, oh, like everyone's like good now, everyone's fast.
Right.
Oh, I need to actually like do like the extra work. Okay.
And then just factoring it in, after Kindle, Jalen Johnson's not playing again.
Yeah.
So Kindle's your 1, means Kyler's your 2, and what's playing nickel? Like
at that point you have Jalen Jones, I suppose, right? He's your nickel.
Means, so you're getting
for an undrafted free agent, he's doing again fine. It's a lot of fine, tons of fine.
So I just don't like this matchup in the secondary. I think it's going to be a bad time if your pass rush can't start getting home.
So transition for me. What would you rehabilitate?
Everything. Am I allowed to say that? No, on
you
the
absolutely
surface,
are.
Honestly, my real answer is the offensive line. You got to do something
Yeah.
to try to shake things up. I would, if I had it my way. I don't know what the hell is going on with Riley Reef, and I want to know because he's probably your best offensive lineman, arguably on the team, and he's not playing football.
It was such a big deal when he got signed. He had that incentive-laden deal. So in theory, like you'd think they'd talk to him and be like, well, if you hit these incentives, you're going to play. You're going to get this extra money, and then just disappears. I mean, I know what's his deal.
I don't know. So, I mean, theoretically, this is all being perfect. Well, what I would do the line is Braxton Jones left tackle, left guard Riley Reef. So you're giving him an experienced, well-respected guy next to him. Center Lucas Patrick, right guard would then be Tevin Jenkins full-time, and your right tackle would be Larry Borum. And then ideal situation, Larry Borum has not just been bad, he's been egregious. He's been terrible at football.
Yeah.
Ideally, Leatherwood gets healthy. You kick Riley Reef back out to right tackle, his natural position that he's played in his career, and then you can maybe transition Leatherwood into being your left guard. And maybe that's how something can work out down the line. But I don't know if that's even plausible because I don't know what the hell is going on with Riley Reef.
It's getting to the point where you got to see. My rehabilitate is the rushing yards that are allowed right now. I mean, it's egregious, right? Bottom of the league with 183.2 yards allowed per game. Defensive DOA where they rank 15th overall, and then the defensive rushing DVOA is 24th. Nick Morrow recorded his first tackle in the third quarter against a team that was just running the ball.
That is inexcusable for a Mike Backer.
Like we know that yes, he's a little better in pass D than rushy, but like you said, inexcusable. Like even if you trip into half a tackle, come on now.
Mason, this might be more your speed. I see John Talalia put up an interesting one. It's how long can we expect before Leatherwood is fully recovered from mono? I know they kind of activated him off of the illness list or the non-football injury, whatever, right, today, and he was seen on the field, but he wasn't doing anything. He was just in street clothes.
Yeah, it boils some. It's such a big range, and I know people hate that answer, but some people it takes them like a year to get their cardio back. He's going to be back before that. Let's get that straight.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say it's probably the 2 to 3 week mark before we truly end up seeing him back. Especially because even when he went down, I mean, he'd barely been here, so he still is trying to figure out what to do with the Bears at this point. But yeah, thanks for highlighting that. And the other thing I want to highlight too on that in terms of the rushing defense is Alan Williams had a quote today saying, when asked how do you think the Vikings are going to attack them, I would think they would look at us and go, you know what, where they are in the stats that they're going to come in and say, hey, they're coming in our house and we're going to run the ball down their throat and then play action pass and get over their head. That's what the stats say to do. So we'll see if the stats lie or not. My question to you is, will the Bears do anything differently? And really, can they do anything differently?
Well, that just reeks of a coach trying to light a fire under his players, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like that's not a bus tossing. That's making it known like, hey, we have to be better.
I would have 100%, right? Like it's just Alan Williams being like, look, like we talked about the keys. We talked about the Jimmys and Joes have to execute. I think that's LOM saying, look, we told y'all that Daniel Jones is going to roll out again, and you still let him roll out again. We told you Saquon's going to be coming right down the middle at you, and you missed the tackle in Morrow in the backfield when we could on 3rd and 8, and we would have had them stopped, but instead you let them scamper for a first down.
Can I actually, before we move on, can I add one small rehabilitated to it?
Yes.
Roquan Smith, you want to be the $20 million linebacker? You've got to make some plays. I'm a big Roquan Smith fan. I thought he was the correct pick, even if Quentin Nelson would have been there out of Georgia that year. That's how special I thought he was. And the production he had at Georgia was close to unparalleled when he came out. I get it. Tyrod Taylor is a special athlete playing quarterback. Daniel Jones is a good athlete playing quarterback. Tyrod is a special athlete and has been for a very long time. But you have to make that tackle. He can't spin out from under you. You have to make certain plays if you want to be that guy. And
anything in life, you got to be the top of the top. If you're going to ask for that kind of money, he's not doing that right now.
Correct. That just throwing that out there because I know I've had it in my mentions and my DMs and stuff before. Like, oh, you're just apologizing for Roquan. Like, yeah, I do because part of being a Mike or a Will in this defense is having everything filtered to you or funneled to you rather, and you have to be able to get clean hits. He's not remaining clean, but when he is clean, he's missing some should-be tackles. And that's necessary if you want the money that he's asking for.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. I don't care. I don't particularly care if you're getting blocked, if you're clean. I don't care if you're getting double teamed. When you want to be a top 3, let's just say, guy being paid at your position, you get through that stuff. You make, gold out of shit. Just to put it lightly. So that's what you need to do.
Correct.
All right, we're going to move on now to our X factors. We're going to have one on offense, or one for the Bears, and we're also going to have one for the Vikings. So, Danny, what is your X factor for
the Bears? I mean, it's Justin, right? It's got to be. At the end of the day, it's got to be Justin Fields. You got to start scoring points. You can't have 12 points being scored in a modern NFL game.
Yeah, I've had people kind of sliding to my DMs and responding things saying that I'm trying to give Justin a pass. I think kind of similar to with you and Roquan. And I just think he was, first of all, put in a terrible situation. However, there are so many there are things that he needs to take care of, right? He does hold on to the ball too long. He is looking for the perfect pass. He's letting perfect be the devil or the enemy of good. Take the good, right? Take the easy pass when it does exist. And, unfortunately, you got to trust a line that's kind of untrustable, which that leads me to my X factor, interior offensive line. I need those 3 guys, even though you lost Cody White here, I need those 3 guys to be able to give Justin at a minimum that 2.5 to 3 seconds to make the read.
Here's my question for you. Are they going to play Ja'Tyre Carter?
So that's an interesting thing because that was floating around Bears Twitter today, right? With ESPN having Ja'Tyre Carter as listed as the right guard right now. I'm pretty sure, and take this with a grain of salt, but I'm pretty sure they literally all they did was, Cody Whitehair is on IR. Let's put him back. Who's next in line on our depth chart? Oh, we're moving Carter up.
Right, that makes sense.
I don't think the Bears can start 2 rookies on the left side. I just don't think they can do it. If you had a more stable left tackle, right? If you didn't have a problem at center right now, maybe you could do that, but not with what's going on.
Sure.
What about for the Vikings? What is your X factor? What will the Vikings need to do to win this?
The X factor player is Justin Jefferson. Or any number of guys. I don't know what Dalvin was. Dalvin Cook on the injury report or no? I didn't catch that.
No, and that's the thing. There was so few. We didn't really talk about it. Yeah, he wasn't on there at all, and there was 3 people who were limited but will play.
Thankfully, they're coming off of that plane ride back because this offense that they're facing could be nothing nice for them between Thielen and Jefferson and Cook. So I guess I'll throw, instead of Jefferson because he's the easy one, I'll throw Cook just because of how bad the run defense has been. You might get a heavy dosage of him and Madison, and they might just do it until you decide to stop them. Which, can they?
Oh, that absolutely makes sense. And that's the thing. You can go to so many different X factors right now for the Vikings. I chose to go with Kirk Cousins versus Alan Williams. We talked about how Kirk Cousins is is when it's perfect, he's good. When it's not perfect, he's bad. So is Kirk going to be able to overcome that? Is Alan Williams going to challenge him essentially? Like is Alan Williams going to say, "Hey, we're going to muddy the water"? Is there going to be a shifting of coverage? Is there going to be confusion of who's coming on a blitz or not? Because
part of that is
if
also
not, then Kirk wins.
And part of that also is your big money players got to make big money plays. Robert Quinn is making a boatload of money, and he's been on a milk carton this year. Where is he? You set the franchise record last year for sacks, and the whole offseason, we're wondering if he's going to get traded. He's not getting traded, and he's not doing anything now.
Oh, yeah, he's doing absolutely nothing. Gave him a little bit of a pass when it came to the Texans game, just because, that was a tough matchup for almost anybody. But other than that, though, you got to show up, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. Who would you say is going to be your thought on who's going to be the offensive player of the game for the Bears?
Offensive player of the game for the Bears. Last time I'm going to go off history. The last time Mooney lined up against the Vikings, he went off for a pretty big game. I want to say it was close to double-digit catches with like 120 plus yards or so and a touchdown, if memory serves. So I think if the Bears want to stand a chance, Mooney's going to have a big day, and I think that's the offensive player of the game if they want to have a chance, because you can't just keep relying on your running game. Eventually, your passing game has to support your run game.
So you and I were similar in this. I wanted to put Mooney, but then I thought, okay, well, he's going to get, I don't know, shut down, but Patrick Peterson. You talked about Dantzler. They've been fine. I'm going to go back to my love matchup where I talked about Bynum not being so hot this year. So I think someone that maybe you could use, because apparently they don't want to use Smith-Marset, and apparently they barely want to touch Bayless Jones at this point. I'm hoping they change that. But in lieu of them actually doing that, Dante Pettis is mine. Can Dante Pettis with his speed challenge deep?
That's an interesting thought, especially because he has been lining up in the slot a fair amount, because Equanimeous St. Brown is strictly outside only.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's entirely possible.
That's an interesting call, especially because we know based off of record based on Justin Fields going on record earlier that he likes Dante. So
they show that early and often. Defensive player of the game. Who you got?
It's hard to say. I would almost lean towards you got to stay with the hot hand. Eddie Jackson's been really, really good, and it's hard to ignore him. And this is coming from someone that I've been a very harsh critic of Eddie Jackson, and I think rightfully so. But it seems like he's put a lot of his issues, shall we say, to bed for the time being, and I'm going to ride the hot hand. I think Eddie Jackson might have another big day, and Kirk Cousins is kind of like an ATM. Eventually, he's going to give you the football. You make him throw enough.
I thought about putting Eddie here. I decided just to switch it up just to be different, I suppose. And I put Travis Gibson. He had a good start to the year. It slowed down a little bit, but if you got to get Kirk under pressure. It's as simple as that. I don't believe in Robert Quinn, so I'm not putting him as my answer. So if Travis Gibson can actually create some pressure, throw that Thor hammer down on a couple sacks here, that could be the difference between a win and a loss. Especially if you can knock the Vikings out of field goal range on a drive. Maybe Kirk Cousins fumbles the ball in one of those. That's why I got Gibson.
Sure.
All right. So then that leads us to who we believe is going to be our King of the North, aka our MVP of the game. Who do you got?
Justin Jefferson.
For all of the reasons above.
For all of the reasons above, he's the best receiver in football right now for my money. The Cooper Kupp or whoever you want to throw in there with him. That guy is a problem. And it's going to be one of those games I feel like into next week, I'm still going to feel like Justin Jefferson is just running open all over Soldier Field, or in this case, the new stadium up in Minnesota. I always want to say the Metrodome. I know it's not the Metrodome, but it's what I default to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, this is called the King of the North. So he is in the NFC, so he does NFC North. He does count for this. I refuse to put a Viking in this category. I won't do it. So I
refuse.
I'm putting Eddie Jackson, just like J2K said. Bojack is playing godlike tier football. You and I both mentioned how good that play interception he had was. I mean, he ran that route, but the amount of space he covered was beautiful. It's if the Bears win, it's gonna be because he does something that switches how this game ends up looking.
Sure.
All right, transitioning to some of our other predictions. Over unders.
Hit me.
All right, so first one, Justin Jefferson, over under 7.5 receptions.
Over.
Unfortunately, I think that's pretty close. I believe his highest this year might have been 9. But I mean, who's guarding him right now? Is it going to be Kyler Gordon? I mean,
or do you have Kindle? Do you have your best Kindle just kind of follow him around?
Shadow with Kindle Vildor. Thought I would never hear that uttered, and it makes me a little sick. I mean, again, he's playing way better. I get Kindle to do, but I don't like saying bad sentences.
All right, next.
3.5 sacks allowed by the Bears.
Oy. Under. They're going to run the ball a lot, and I hope that they get it together a little bit. I'm trying to not be a complete downer pessimist this whole show, as I've kind of been the entire show, So
yeah, I'm gonna say I would say over. I know it's a focus, and they don't necessarily have the most amazing pass rushers. I mean, they got some solid ones though. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, Danielle Hunter is still very good.
I was gonna say Danielle Hunter's still really good at
playing
football.
of the football. Zadarius Smith is still the playing of the football. I just meant it more like they didn't have the TJ Watt of the world, but they're both very good. And just the fact that I think there could be some, again, with Ed Donatel, there could be some confusing coverages.
I just looked it up. Danielle Hunter to this point has a whole 1 sack on the season. Uh-oh.
Wow. That's actually surprising. I'm blown away by that. Yeah, and like J2K just said, I mean, 6 sacks on 22 attempts last week.
Now, to be fair, wasn't 2 of them Justin running out of bounds short of the sticks? So
yes, that absolutely was. So that even if you go with 4, it's still not.
Yeah. I'm trying to be optimistic because I've been negative the whole show, man. Give me a break.
All right. How about this one? Maybe be optimistic here. Over under 0.5 touchdowns for Darnell Mooney.
So he scores 8 touchdowns? Sure. Yeah. Darnell hits the house once this game. Sure. 1.
It's just like I wanted it to be even like a different number, but that's bold for him. He's got nothing.
Oh man, this is just a really uplifting segment we're doing, isn't it?
Maybe the next one will be more fun. Over under 250 passing yards for Kirk Cousins.
Over.
I would agree. I mean, he had 260 something and 270 something in 2 of his last games. And we just went into great detail saying how the secondary is not good. This one's a pick 'em. So this should be interesting. So if you had to straight up pick who you thought would have a better, let's say, fantasy day between this combination, between Cook and Madison and between Herbert and, let's say, Montgomery plays, who is you picking?
I would probably go Cook because he's probably the most talented of the group. I know Madison's been kind of a darling lately with
So Cook is for you is lifting the group of Cook Madison over the group of Herbert Monty.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I know Cook is hard to get behind because he's got some off-field stuff dating back to his days at Florida State and whatnot. But just the pure talent of him playing running back, it's unreal.
I think I'm going to go with Herbert and Monty just because I think the Vikings are going to pass a lot. And so then I don't know if Cook will get necessarily as many options. I
think they're going to pass a lot. You said that like a question.
It's just, yeah. I'm trying to again, not want to be this negative, so I'm trying to phrase things
Yeah.
differently.
Oh,
But
I absolutely. And we're a Bears show. It's hard to forget that sometimes we are a Bears show. Like,
so that's why I'm going to go with Herbert Montgomery, just because I think the Bears have to use them to score versus I don't know that the Vikings are going to have to use Cook.
I think we're all sleeping on Cole Kmet at this point. You know.
Oh, you shut your mouth. I'm still to an extent a Cole Kmet apologist, and I'm running out of the apologies. Dude, stay off the ground. Like
that's his dude. The turf is his
falling.
best friend. The turf
It's
is his
absurd.
best friend.
I'm over it. So that's a good way to transition to our next segment. One of my favorite ones. This one is called for today, Bear Down, or will it be a Purple People Eater Feast? Basically, I'm going to rapid fire a couple comparisons to Danny. One Bear, one Viking in this instance, and he's going to pick which one he'd prefer. There is a caveat to this one. This one is over the next 5 years. So a little more longevity to keep in mind. Feel free to play in the chat, shoot out who you would choose. So are you ready to go, Danny?
Absolutely.
Dave Montgomery, Dalvin Cook.
Dalvin.
Khalil Herbert, Alexander Madison.
Probably Herbert.
Cole Kmet, Irv Smith.
Irv Smith.
Sam Mustipher, Garrett Bradbury.
Bradbury.
Braxton Jones, Christian Darrisaw.
Darrisaw. I think Darrisaw is slowly becoming a really good left tackle.
I agree. Darnell Mooney, Justin Jefferson.
What? No. Just Jefferson.
Just Darnell Mooney, Adam Thielen.
Next 5 years, you're saying? Mooney.
Mm-hmm.
Thielen's on the back end.
KJ Osborne or Equanimeous St. Brown?
KJ.
See, I love KJ Osborne. I think he's one of the best number 3s in the damn league.
He's a very, very unsung receiver in the NFL. He's a good player.
Jalen Reagor or N'Keal Harry?
Reagor for return purposes.
Justin Fields or Kirk Cousins?
Fields.
And I love that I can do this. There's not a lot of teams I can. Kyrie Blasingame or CJ Ham?
Kyrie Blasingame has been awesome, so I'm going with Kyrie Blasingame. Come on now.
Like, honestly, if you scored everybody just in terms of contribution per what their position can contribute, he'd be a top 3 player for the Bears. I mean, it'd be Eddie Jackson, him. And
he has been legitimately good at what he's been asked to do. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah, Nick Moriano, go check him out on Twitter, has done a good job, I think, of highlighting some of the Blasingame cultism that is floating around, just in terms of what he's been able to do. Like, when he's in there, it's just better. You saw even with him with the Titans, which we haven't seen yet, he can catch the ball. He can run a wheel route really well out of the backfield. I want to see that happen.
Sure.
The one I was going to talk about, because I thought you might go the other way, but was Justin Fields versus Kirk Cousins. But I think, we're on the same page on that. I would take Justin as well. While, we know what Kirk is, and we also, I think, know that you're not gonna win a Super Bowl with Kirk Cousins. You're just straight up not. So why would I take someone that's just gonna keep leading me to either no playoffs or maybe a first round exit?
It's the tale of a quarterback in the NFL.
Defense. All right, we're gonna switch it up now. Travis Gibson or Zadarius Smith?
Next 5 years still? Probably Travis Gibson.
Dominique Robinson or Danielle Hunter?
Danielle. I think the peak is still going to be there for Danielle right now, and I'm a big Robinson fan.
Justin Jones, Jonathan Bullard.
Jones, Bullard. We had the Bullard experience here.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It was not a fun experience. Roquan Smith or Eric Kendricks?
Roquan Eric's again coming to the end of it at his peak. It's hard to remember this. Danielle Hunter's only 27 years old. That's the only reason I went Danielle over Robinson, for the record.
I was going to go back to that because I think that's a fun combo. Harrison Smith or Eddie Jackson?
Oh, that's two really different players. But the next 5 years, probably Eddie. Eddie's not young by any stretch, but I'll say Eddie.
Yeah, I also despise Harrison Smith. Lewis Sign or Jaquan Brisker? Excuse me.
Probably Sign.
Is it Sign?
I think you would have been better served flipping him.
Here's the thing. in terms of actual play, yes, it's technically should be the other way. To
Mhm.
me, though, it was too obvious. If you put Eddie Jackson
Right, I get
against
you.
him for the age, same thing even with Jaquan versus Harrison, you're like, oh, maybe we have a future with Jaquan.
No, I would probably go Scene just because I think Scene was a better football player coming out.
Okay. Patrick Peterson versus Jalen Johnson,
Jalen.
and Cameron Dantzler versus Kyler Gordon.
Ooh. I'll take Kyler just because I think he's going to explode when he plays in the slot full time.
Yeah, I think he's just currently being, like we talked about this before, too many things on his plate, trying to learn two positions. Plus, one of the positions again doesn't fit super well. He really should be at nickel. Kind of stinks that you're. This is a little thing we should, I think, go off for a half second here. What is your impression on how important the nickel is to this defense, considering what we saw with the Colts?
So I think it's super important, not just for this defense, but in this league in general. The league is a passing league. Even with the transition back to too high, you still need a nickel because slot receivers are game changers because the best receivers aren't just outside anymore. It's not just a pure X anymore that's like, oh, you got to worry about him. No, Justin Jefferson's lining up in the slot.
Right.
Like,
yeah. And we saw that was an issue when last year Devontae went into the slot in the second half of that Bears-Packers game. And Jalen was like, he was in the slot. I don't really cover there.
I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but 2 weeks from now when they play Dallas, CeeDee Lamb lines up in the slot greater than 40% of the time. He's not just going to be outside. So you need a good nickel in today's league because the best receivers are lining up inside, outside, not just strictly outside.
Right, absolutely. And that's the thing, like, that's tough that a lot of people are forgetting is that whether it's in this defense or league as a whole, you're now drafting a starter. So spending a second round pick while currently what we've seen hasn't been fantastic. Well, I think it's going to pay dividends longer in the future. So we're going to look at now game predictions, last couple sections here. So we're just going to basically go against the spread. Bears, Vikings. Vikings are favored at 7.5. Who you got?
I think I would pick the Vikings on the money line, but I think it's going to be closer than 8 points. So Bears cover, but Vikings win.
Bears in general are played some of their NFC opponents closer than we think. I think the Vikings are flawed. Again, they barely beat an Andy Dalton team that didn't have Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas. And again, they basically only because of that missed a double doink. I have a hard time picking 7.5 points is too much. So I would also say the Bears here.
Mm-hmm. That's a big
we're going
to
looking at tonight's game. Colts Broncos. Broncos favored by 3. Who you got?
This is going to sound bad because I was on my timeline saying how excited I was to watch the Matt Ryan Colts offense. And there's no Jonathan Taylor tonight. And, ooh, boy, Matty Ice might need to be put on ice at this point. But that defense, I'm going to go Broncos to win.
I picked the Colts, and I'm not happy about it at all. Again, the Broncos, 50% of their offense was Javonte Williams. Melvin Gordon isn't washed by any means, but he's also not Melvin Gordon from the Chargers. I don't know what Russ is doing. And also, I can't pick Russ. The cringiness is too much. The wearing your own jersey.
Mr. Unlimited doesn't do it for you?
Unlimited. Like, unlimited. I can't do it. I straight up can't do it. Also, I don't know. I think Matty Ice can elevate a team still in the right circumstance. And with the receivers he has, with the line that they have, I think that there's going to be options.
Sure. I can see that.
That's my way to talk myself into not picking Russell Wilson. Next, we got Giants at Packers, -8. Who you got?
Giants at Packers, -8. You know what? I think the Giants are terrible. I'm going to say the Packers went outright and cover that spread. That's a big number, but I mean, Romeo Doubs is coming on. They still got A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. Bobby Tanyan's been getting better. Another, Chicago area kid. I'm going to say that's pretty easy. Packers on both win and cover the spread.
I'm picking the Packers as well. I mean, the Giants Bears game. Giants fans are strutting right now, but it's two bad teams who are 2-1 trying to pretend to be 3-1. Daniel Jones is still limping about. They still don't have receivers even after last week. Plus they even lost more. They're hurting. The Packers are the Packers. They're not gonna let the Giants do what they did to the Bears. It's just not gonna happen.
Nope.
Lions at Patriots. The Lions are favored by 3.
And Bailey Zappi's playing quarterback, right?
Still not official, but I've told Kyrie Thompson, who does a great job covering the Patriots. Him and I had a good conversation about the high ankle sprain that Mac Jones went through, and they're not putting him in IR. He should be out 6 to 7 weeks. The fact that he's not is insane. He's not playing this week, in my humble opinion, as a physical therapist, sporty guy. So yeah, go with Zapp.
All right, I will say that it's probably going to be. I think the Lions, they've been good. They can't stop anything, but they're putting up points, and I think they lead the league in explosive plays from scrimmage right now. So could be fun. And they don't even have Jameson Williams back.
I'm so excited. I have him in like 3 dynasty leagues. I'm so excited when he comes back because it's going to be great. I'm going to pick the same thing, Lions, for all the reasons you said. And lastly, Raiders at Chiefs. Chiefs favored by 7.
Chiefs cover. The Raiders are a dumpster fire. McDaniels looks like he's completely in and over his head right now. And that's wild considering I thought he was going to be the best coaching hire of the cycle to start. And I'm not even afraid to admit that. I never thought he would leave New England, truthfully. And then Las Vegas got him out of it. But I'm going to say, yeah, Patrick Mahomes is still leading the best offense in the league, despite using Tyreek Hill on an EPA per play basis. The little play off the goal line last week where he like spins out and like just shot puts it to Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the back of the end zone. It's like at a certain point, what are you supposed to do? They have Patrick Mahomes, and it's like years ago, DeMar DeRozan after getting knocked out of the Eastern Conference semis again by LeBron James and the Cavs, and he just goes, "They have LeBron James and we don't. What do you want me to say?" It's like they have Patrick Mahomes and we don't. That's where it ends.
The Raiders are the perfect. What were you trying to do? What did you expect to be, and why are you so far from it? Right? Because they were like, we're Devontae Adams away from being legitimate contenders. They did that. I'm a same boat you were. I was pissed that the Bears didn't even consider Josh McDaniels because I thought he was going to be a great hire and was going to, flip whatever offense that he got.
And he learned his lessons. Yeah.
Learned his lessons, and it just straight up didn't happen. I don't remember if you know who did this thread. Someone who's on the Broncos, he was a lineman, tweeted out a thread talking about some of the stuff that McDaniels.
Oh yeah, the former offensive lineman. I read that.
Do you remember who that was?
I can't remember the offensive lineman's name. I know he was a lineman, though.
If anyone can find that, read that, because I think it's a perfect microcosm of, in theory, maybe what's still going on. Maybe in Raiderland, maybe he didn't learn his lesson, because that thread highlighted so well what the problem was there. But yeah, all right, that's our game predictions. Next and final segment, we have our Coccyx and Bull story, play on a cock and bull story, which is something just so unbelievable that it'd be crazy if it happens. Gotta love it. Give it up for the pun. And so, what is your offensive bold prediction?
Offensive bold prediction. Darnell Mooney gets into the touchdown, gets into the end zone and scores his first touchdown of the year. Going real bold here.
It's funny because my bold prediction is probably even less, maybe less so than that one. That I have Emir Smith-Marset, revenge game, shows up with a 30-plus yard catch. That's it, just catch.
I would love that. I think you and I have talked enough about this, Mason. When he got cut, I was like texting you like, they need to go get him right now.
Oh, absolutely. And in theory, he fits what the Bears miss a bit. They don't have a super speedy deep threat, but he only had 6 snaps last game. So get him on the dang field. Defensively, I had Bears force Kirk Cousins to commit 2 turnovers. I'm thinking one's going to be a fumble, maybe Travis Gibson right off the edge, and then an interception.
Robert Quinn shows up. Harkening back to when I first started doing Bears podcasting, I'm going to keep just hammering one thing until it happens. And a couple years ago, it was Anthony Miller is the X factor. If the Bears can just get Anthony Miller involved. Right now, it's Robert Quinn just explodes out of the scene this week.
Maybe this is it. Maybe he just needed to shake
He
off the
needed the
rust or
Christian.
something.
He needed the Christian Darrisaw matchup. Is what he needed, Mr. Man.
Well, that is all we have for tonight. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Again, it's amazing. We still have not been canceled yet. We're here. Leave any comments, on YouTube, on Twitter, for the fantasy section. If there's a player that pops up and you have a question, please shoot me a DM, and we'll focus on that. If they're going to play, if it's someone that you should start, how that's going to look. Again, anything you want to leave off here with, Danny?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right,
everyone have a good night, knuckleheads.
Have fun with a not great Thursday night football game. Peace out.
Toodles.